We are on Genesis chapter 38. And this is the incident between Judah and Tamar. Very, how do you put it? Stuff came out here that Judah didn't want to come out. This was a difficult chapter for him. And this chapter is one of the biggest proofs, too, in Scripture that Torah was there from the beginning. That it was given to the people from the very beginning, that it was a tree of knowledge of good and evil. The way Torah is followed in this chapter in minute detail is amazing. Let's take a look at verse 1 of Genesis 38. And it came about at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. Now, the time frame here, we don't know. We're not given a real time frame as how old anybody is or anything. Some people think that this is an interlude between the selling of Joseph and his rise to power, which, if that's the case, then you have 23 years to work with. And it's possible, but you're kind of squeezing it in. Because we're going to get Judah married. He's going to have 3 sons, and 2 of them are going to be of marrying age. So for that to happen in 23 years, that's kind of pushing it, but time frame isn't important. It doesn't have to be consecutive here, because we're looking at a different set of characters now. The focus of this chapter is Judah, his sons, and his daughter-in-law. Verse 2, and Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her. Now, this is, Judah gets married, and he marries a Canaanite woman, and that's not a good idea. That's a bad idea. He shouldn't have done it. If he had followed his father's, his grandfather's, and great-grandfather's example, he would have married one among his people. But he didn't do it. This is against Torah. In Deuteronomy 7, the first 4 verses say, when Yahweh your Elohim shall bring you into the land where you are entering to possess it, and shall clear away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites, and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and stronger than you. And when Yahweh your Elohim shall deliver them before you, you shall defeat them. Then you shall utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them and show no favor to them. Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons. For they'll turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of Yahweh will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you. So this is a disobedience. His marriage here is a disobedience to the Torah. And if most people would say, well, the Torah wasn't given yet. Yes, it was. Okay, and he knew it. He was just disobedient here. Verse 3. So she conceived and bore a son and named him I don't know what means. That's another name that people, I guess, haven't passed on too much. Then she conceived again and bore a son and named him Onan. And she bore still another son and named him Shelah. And it was at Kezib that she bore him. Now, we're not told how far apart these births are. We don't know. They could have been consecutive years, but we don't know at all. Now, the names of places mentioned in this chapter, there's several of them here concerning Judah. Earlier, Adullam was mentioned, and now Kezib is mentioned. Timnah and Enam are going to be called out also. All these are areas that are part of the future land of the tribe of Judah. Verse 6. Now, Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Now, years have passed here. The firstborn son, he grows up. He's the age of marriageability. And we're not told the meaning of her name at all. Nor are we told the meanings of the names of the sons of Judah, for that matter. So they don't last very long anyway. Verse 7. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of Yahweh. So Yahweh took his life. Now, we're not told what he did. He did something wicked. or was just wicked as a person. But the fact that Judah married a Canaanite woman gives us enough of a hint to know that it possibly has to do with idolatry or pagan worship, because a Canaanite woman's not going to be dedicated to Elohim. She's going to be dedicated to the God she grew up with. It's interesting here is that it does not say he did evil in the sight of Yahweh. It says he was evil in the sight of Yahweh. So Er's life was apparently a wicked one, a lawless one. And once again, could we attribute that to Judah taking a pagan wife? Maybe, probably. Well, he said that's what would happen. Yeah.
You know, just back briefly, you said he took a wife and she was not going to be easy to throw. She's going to be a minister. The God makes sense. I mean, if they don't, and they always do. That's why we don't go with somebody that's not. They're going to be pulled in a different direction.
They're going to be pulled in a different direction. And then what do the kids see? What do the children see? Well, I don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, confusion. It doesn't work.
Very exciting.
In verse 8, then Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her and raise up offspring for your brother. You know, Judah is speaking of practicing here what's called the Levirate marriage. That's a term that's been given. The Levirate is Latin for husband's brother. Now, Judah's following the Torah as it undoubtedly was given to him and others long before Sinai. Yeah.
Why would he want his other son to marry this pagan woman?
Now, Tamar's not necessarily the pagan woman. Judah married a pagan woman.
He said that he married.
Yeah, Judah did. Judah married, his dad married a pagan woman. Now, he has to do the duty as a brother-in-law. And that is in Deuteronomy 25, verses 5 and 6. When brothers live together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the deceased shall not be married outside the family to a strange man. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her to himself as wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And it shall be that the firstborn whom she bears shall assume the name of his dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out from Israel. Now, it's the duty of the younger brother to see that his brother's name is carried on. Now, to not do this is shameful, and the offending brother is publicly disgraced. This passage goes on, verses 7 through 10. But if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to establish a name for his brother in Israel. He is not willing to perform the duty of a husband's brother to me. Then the elders of his city shall summon him and speak to him. And if he persists and says, I do not desire to take her, then his brother's wife shall come to him in the sight of the elders and pull his sandal off his foot and spit in his face. She shall declare this, thus it is done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. And in Israel his name shall be called the house of him whose sandal is removed. Yeah.
The brother marries the widow.
Yes.
They have a son.
Yes.
Does he remain married to her?
Yes. He remains married to her.
What happens if it's the second son?
Then that's his son. The first son is the deceased brother's son.
In the estate or the inheritance, how is that?
Well, you see, he'll get the inheritance that his father would have had. And, yeah, it gets complicated.
The reason that Boaz, the other one, he's claiming because, oh, no.
That's why Boaz really loved Ruth. You could tell that. Yeah, he wasn't afraid of the mix-up with the what he would lose in inheritance. But,
He does stay married to that.
yes, he stays married to that woman. And then his son that's really his isn't until the next one. Verse 9, and Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So it came about that he went into his brother's wife. He wasted his seed on the ground in order not to give offspring to his brother. You know, Onan knew that their son would not perpetuate his name according to the Torah. It says there in verse 6 we just read of Deuteronomy 25, it shall be that the firstborn whom she bears shall assume the name of his dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out from Israel. And then that firstborn son gets double inheritance from the father. And this guy, Onan, just said, I'm not gonna have a son with her. I'm not gonna do it. So it says he wasted his seed on the ground, and I hear all kinds of people trying to claim some kind of sexual laws according to this passage, and it's simply not true, okay? He was breaking the Torah of Deuteronomy 25 of the Levirate law, and he was refusing to bring his brother's son up. So Onan was evil also. He was just like his brother He brought the wrath of Elohim down on himself. Verse 10. And what he did was displeasing in the sight of Yahweh, so he took his life also. Now, most commentaries, like the Jewish Publication Society and their commentaries, say, well, they didn't have the Levirate law yet, because their stance is the Torah was given to Israel at Mount Sinai, and anything of following the Torah before that was coincidental. Okay? They say, for instance, in that commentary, that the surrounding nations had that custom. All right? And then Judah followed that custom also. Well, okay, that's silly. All right? He followed it to a detail here. And it doesn't say here that what he did was against the customs of the nations, so Yahweh took his life, does it? Why would it displease him if it was just the custom of the nations? It wouldn't. It's the Torah that he broke. And this is not, like I said, it's not a it's not directive on birth control either. Okay, that's what some people say. I just got to get that in there. Verse 11. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up." For he thought, I'm afraid that he too may die like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. Now, Judah was not freeing her to marry somebody else. He simply told her to go live in her father's house. It would appear, though, he didn't intend to give that last son away. You know, that's evident in his thoughts here, that he may also die like his brothers, that he says here. Judah was intent on disobedience, it appears. Verse 12. Now after a considerable time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. And when the time of mourning was ended, Judah went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira and the Adulamite. Several more years have passed by now. The Canaanite wife of Judah died. He was in mourning. And Judah decided he's going to bury himself in his work. Now, he goes down to Timnah. Timnah is where Tamar is located. That's where Tamar's parents are. Now, I want you to remember the name of that city. Timnah. Very important. Okay, we're going to come back to that a little bit later on another account we're going to look at in the book of Judges. What's the name of that city again? Timnah. Thank you. That's right. Very good. No one forgot yet. It's located halfway between Jerusalem and the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. No, it wasn't on the coast. It actually was in Philistine territory for a lot of history. Verses 13 and 14. And it was told to Tamar, "Behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So she removed her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat in the gateway of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up and she had not been given to him as a wife. Well, Tamar was past the point of waiting patiently for her father-in-law to give her to a son. She probably knew the death of his wife, knew about that. And since she didn't hear from him in years, she feels like she's getting jilted here. She's thinking he has no plans to fulfill that obligation that he has to do. Well, Tamar was wearing her widow's garb, even though it was far past the time of her customary mourning. It was years later. But she hung on to that widow's dress. I guess she's worn it twice already. And she may have worn it every once in a while to remind people, I'm not an old maid. I'm a widow. Okay, there's a difference. Well, what she does here, she dressed up like a prostitute. She apparently spent the last few years scheming, and I think this was what she had planned on doing. And it says, she sat in the gateway of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. Now, so she's standing by the road. And that's what, prostitutes will do that. They'll station themselves right by on an open road. And Judah saw her and thought she was one. Verse 15, when Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, told you, for she had covered her face. Now, harlots in that day would stand by the open road by themselves, kind of like they do now. Judah mistook her for a prostitute because he could not see her identity. And apparently prostitutes in that day did try to hide their faces. I guess they didn't want it publicly known. They wanted the advertisement out there, but not to be known for sure. Had he known who it was, he certainly would not have done what he did. That's evident later on in the text. Had he known it was her, he obviously would have gone past her and found a real prostitute, but he didn't do that. He thought he found one. Different one, yeah. Verse 16, so he turned aside to her by the road and said, here now, let me come into you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you may come in to me? He said, therefore, I will send you a kid from the flock. She said, moreover, will you give a pledge until you send it? So apparently the going rate for a quickie in that day was a goat. At least it was in Timnah. That was the price in Timnah. What's the name of that city again? Thank you, yes. Verse 18, and he said, what pledge shall I give you? And she said, your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Now Tamar knew what she was doing. Tamar said she wants his signet ring as a pledge for the assurance that she would get her young goat as payment for her services. His signet ring, that's a ring seal with impressions on it that were made to ascertain property. Now, she also wanted his cord. It could be a necklace that he wore. I don't know, though. Could be a reference to tzitzits. I was just curious about that. She wanted his staff, and you see the staffs in that day would be personalized. He would have his logo or whatever carved on that thing. So they had sex. She conceived. Verse 19, then she arose and departed and removed her veil and put on her widow's garments. Now, it's a little known fact from the Talmud that Tamar looked like Vivian Lee from Gone with the Wind. So I put that on there. She's in her widow's garments. Verse 20. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adulamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. And he asked the men of her place, saying, where's the temple prostitute who was by the road at Enaim? But they said, there's been no temple prostitute here. Okay. Apparently, this guy owed Judah a really, really big favor. He says, go take this goat and go down to Timnah and find the prostitute. Ask around and find the prostitute so I can get my signet ring, my cord, and my staff back. So the guy's walking around, where's your temple prostitute at? I'm sorry, we don't have one. What do you? Well, I see you brought your goat and everything, but we haven't seen her.
It said she conceived by him. That means she had a kid?
She had a kid.
Oh.
Not a goat.
Yeah, not a goat. Yeah, watch how we use kid in this chapter. This kid could have two meanings. And apparently, I find it funny that Judah, well, I'm not going back down there asking for where the prostitute is. Old Henry, though. Henry owes me that big favor. Verse 22, so he returned to Judah and said, I did not find her. And furthermore, the men of the place said, there has been no temple prostitute here. Then Judah said, let her keep them, lest we become a laughingstock. After all, I sent this kid, but you did not find her. Okay. So Judah said, this is embarrassing. All right, let's just forget it. We'll move on. She can have my credit card. Okay?
She already had one.
Yeah, she already had a kid. That's right. Well, the other kind, but yeah. Verse 24. Now it was about 3 months later that Judah was informed, your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and behold, she is also with child by harlotry. Then Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. Let her be burned. Now, why would he say that? Oh, exactly.
Find out what he did.
Well, he doesn't know it's her. He thinks she's just been playing the harlot. Why, that evil woman. And to think I was just about to give my youngest son to her. Yeah.
That's the point. She had basically was promised the son
Yeah.
just because they hadn't lived up to their responsibility of giving the son to her. So she was promised. So as a promised woman, she's out here. Oh boy, adultery.
A promised woman, an adulterer, a harlot. Oh, goodness. My son's going to be able to marry some woman that won't kill him.
And now pregnant.
Yeah, and that's now pregnant. Well, this is another example of how, the Torah was followed by his people in that day. He called for her to be burned. That is in accordance with Torah. Leviticus 21, verse 9, also the daughter of any priest, if she profanes herself by harlotry, she profanes her father, she shall be burned with fire. That's what Judah called for. You know, the question comes up, well, was Judah a priest per se? Well, remember, the firstborn were to be the priests. Okay? In Exodus 13, verses 1 and 2, Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, sanctify to me every firstborn, the first offspring of every womb among the sons of Israel, both of man and beast, it belongs to me. Well, Reuben would have been the firstborn. But Reuben came about while Israel was dwelling in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard of it. That's in Genesis 35:22. So, yeah, now we're down to 11 sons now. Yeah, and then we had, let's see, the other two, it was Levi and Simeon. Now, what did Levi and Simeon do? They went and killed a bunch of people they killed off a whole town. And they're evil. And that left Judah as the oldest, which he would have been, I guess he would have been considered in that priesthood. And regardless, all of Israel is to be priests. We see in Exodus 19, verses 5 and 6, now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you shall speak to the sons of Israel. And that's who literally he is the son of Israel. So look at how detailed the Torah is being followed here with the Levirate law, and the daughter of a priest being a harlot is to be burned. That's pretty detailed in following the Torah, wouldn't you say?
How do you know she was a daughter of a priest? Never mind.
I just explained that. She's actually daughter-in-law, but daughter.
Well, I knew that, but I mean, yeah. Okay, never mind.
See, all of Israel are to be priests.
Well, I caught all that, but
Oh, okay.
she married the firstborn.
Yeah, and then another one. Still right, but she's still the daughter. Daughter-in-law or daughter. Verses 25 and 26, it was while she was being brought out that she sent to her father-in-law, saying, I'm with child by the man to whom these things belong. And she said, please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff are these. And Judah recognized him and said, she is more righteous than I, inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he did not have relations with her again. Now Judah acknowledged his sin, and he acknowledged that she was more righteous than him. Which, let's face it, he set the bar pretty low. Okay? He was guilty of multiple grievous sins. All she was trying to do was get him to live up to his obligations. That's all she was doing. And he wasn't going to do it. She found a way for it to happen, though. Verse 27, it came about at the time she was giving birth that, behold, there were twins in her womb. Moreover, it took place while she was giving birth. One put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. Well, Zerah's hand appeared first, but Perez was actually born first. Perez means breach or forging through. Perez is listed in the genealogy of Messiah. You see, all this stuff that happened, still in the genealogy leading to Messiah, doesn't have much to do with perfect people.
You know, that's the point I'm going to make, is that all of this, whatever, consider ourselves so unworthy and all that, but he had all these other people that were unworthy too that were in his plan, so why can't we?
Right, exactly. If it, you know, I talk to a lot of people, and I feel the same way they do when they say, well, I'm not worthy to be chosen to be obedient to his word and stuff, to have his breath and in me, to desire his ways. I don't know. He must have the wrong person. You know, I'm not the kind of guy he wants. Well, you know, that's his decision, not ours. Yeah, he's proved that. That's correct. These things were written for us to learn by, okay? Verses 29 and 30, but it came about as he drew back his hand that, behold, his brother came out. Then she said, what a breach you have made of yourself. So he was named Perez. And afterward his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread in his hand, and he was named Zerah. Now, no meaning is given for the name of the twin Zerah. This is the end of the account of Judah. It contrasts the righteous account of Joseph in the next chapter, by the way. Now, this account with Judah gives us insight into the life of a man known as Samson. What is overlooked by Samson is that people look at him as just a big, tremendously strong brute of a man. Okay? What is overlooked about him is that he was a brilliant tactician. Absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to show you. Someone who plans and yes, going to battle. Plans the battle and everything. Strategist, thank you. That's the term. Let's look at Judges 14, verses 1 and 2. Then Samson went down to, where did he go again? What was that? Oh, you said Timnah. Very good. And saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. So he came back and told his father and mother, I saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Well, Samson saw a girl that obviously got his attention here. And she's a Philistine girl. Philistines are not exactly in this list of nations here in Deuteronomy 7, 1 through 4. But they're essentially Canaanites. Okay? In Exodus 34, starting in verse 12, make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land in which you're going. That would have included the Philistines. And don't take some of their daughters for your sons and so forth. And Samson told his mom and dad, I saw this Philistine chick. She's hot. Get her for me for a wife. Interesting. And Paul even talked about, believers, non-believers don't mix. He went further with that. See, but Samson has a plan. Look at verses 3 and 4. Then his father and his mother said to him, is there no woman among the daughters of your relatives or among all our people that you go take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she looks good to me. However, his father and mother did not know that it was of Yahweh, for he was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. Now, at that time, the Philistines were ruling over Israel. Now, Samson's parents knew this was wrong. This was against the Torah. But Samson insisted on I want that woman. She looks good. Now, he was in Timnah. He met this gal. And I guarantee you, he saw that she was good looking and easy. Okay? Pagan Philistine gal. That's what and that's going to all play a part in his plan. Now, here's where the passage is. I have a little issue with this right here. You see where the he is capitalized? Okay, it shouldn't be. There's no capitalization in Hebrew or Greek, by the way. They think that's Elohim is what that stands for. Well, it says here opportunity. He was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. Elohim doesn't search for opportunities, okay? Yeah, he can just make them anytime he wants. The guy searching for the opportunity against the Philistines is Samson. And this is the one he's taking. He's taking this opportunity against the Philistines. Verses 5 and 6. Then Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came as far as the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion came roaring at him. And the Spirit of Yahweh came upon him mightily, so that he tore him as one tears a kid, though he had nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he'd done. This was not a strength thing that Samson had naturally. It was the Spirit of Elohim that gave him strength, okay? It was the breath of the Father that gave him that strength. Now, did you know that, we look at Samson that way as a big, brute, hulking brute of a man. Did you know David was the same way? He was the same way. Look at, that would fade it off there, fading back in. In 1 Samuel 17, verses 34, starting at verse 34, but David said to Saul, your servant was tending his father's sheep when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. I went after him and attacked him and rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose up against me, I seized him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living Elohim. Okay, now let me tell you, a definition of a tough guy that'll go up to a lion or bear and pull on his beard and kill him. That's a tough guy. Verses 7 and 8. So he went down and talked to the woman, and she looked good to Samson. And when he returned later to take her, he turned aside to look at the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the body of the lion. Okay, we don't know how much time passed by here. But when you get a dead body, say the size of a lion, laying around in the wilderness, how long does it last? Not long. There's all kinds of wolves, foxes, hyenas, other lions, vultures finish it off. What after a few days, say a week, what's left? Skeleton. Yeah.
They can eat the bones.
Yeah, now keep in mind that Samson, he was under an oath. He was under the Nazirite vow. So we can't touch the carcass of an animal. The dead carcass of an animal. That's not bones, okay? The implication there is dead flesh of an animal. The fleshly carcass. So bones that's something different. Because we know he took the jawbone of an ass and killed 1,000 people, 1,000 men. It doesn't mean bones. It means carcass. The flesh and everything on it. The stinking, rotting corpse. Verse 9, so he scraped the honey into his hands and went on eating as he went. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them and they ate it. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey out of the body of the lion. So he didn't tell his parents anything about where the honey came from. Samson has a plan in mind. He has a plan with saying, Mom and Dad, get me that Philistine woman. I'm going to marry her. I've got this honey. I've got a plan. Verses 10 and 11. Then his father went down to the woman, and Samson made a feast there, for the young men customarily did this. And it came about when they saw him that they brought 30 companions to be with him. Samson wants to act like one of the guys, one of the Philistine guys. Okay, he's going to party with them. They're going to have fun. But he's setting a trap. Verse 12, then Samson said to them, let me now propound a riddle to you. If you'll indeed tell it to me within the 7 days of the feast and find it out, I'll give you 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes. But if you're unable to tell me, then you give me 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes. They said to him, propound your riddle that we may hear it. So he said to them, out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. But they could not tell the riddle in 3 days. This riddle it has purpose. There's no indication that Samson needed 30 changes of clothes, okay? And besides, they're Philistine clothing. He wouldn't have worn it anyway. Different tribes in different areas wore the same things, all right? The Walmarts in the area did not carry a big variety of stuff. But when a lot of cloth was made, everyone got clothes, okay? And it would be likely the same stuff. But he wouldn't want Philistine clothing anyway. So he makes a bet with them. You know, it would appear that Samson wasn't just a wild man that partied and made bets. It appears he's setting his whole thing up to attack the Philistines, and it be their fault for him doing so. Okay? He can't just go down there and start killing people. No. I've got to have a reason to where it's their fault. Verse 15, then it came about on the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, entice your husband that he may tell us the riddle, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us to impoverish us? Is this not so? And Samson's wife wept before him and said, you only hate me, you don't love me. You propounded a riddle to the sons of my people and have not told it to me. And he said to her, behold, I have not told to my father or mother, so should I tell you? However, she wept before him 7 days while their feast lasted. They're not married yet, by the way, just betrothed. And it came about on the 7th day that he told her because she pressed him so hard. She then told the riddle to the sons of her people. So Samson's wife pressed very hard. He knew she would. That's why he set the stakes so high. He told her he didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad don't even know. He knew they'd pressure her, and he knew that if they got the answer, he knew where it came from. Because he didn't tell anybody. Verse 18. So the men of the city said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, what is sweeter than honey and what is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have found out this riddle. Now, if you don't recognize the symbolism in Samson's words, they didn't just threaten her. She was the party girl. Okay? He said, if you hadn't messed with my newly betrothed wife-to-be, you wouldn't have solved that riddle. He knew she was having improper relations with the village boys. Okay? Verse 19, then the Spirit of Yahweh came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of them, took their spoil, gave the changes of clothes to those who told the riddle. And his anger burned, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion who had been his friend. Yeah.
Didn't he technically break his vow and become unclean because of being around dead people?
When he killed them, yeah. Well, my guess is that when he killed him, he threw him a long ways away. Yeah, that's true. That's probably right. Yeah, to break their neck, they can still breathe for a while. Yeah. Well, the spirit of Elohim came upon him mightily, so he's justified to kill 30 of them. They plowed with his heifer. They deceived him on a bet, and he wasn't going to put up with it. Now, the friend here, Samson's wife was given to his companion who had been his friend. That's one of those Philistine guys, because the guy's in Timnah. Yeah, he was pals with them guys. There's a reason for that. You know your enemy. You bring them close to you. That's what he did. That's what he did. Now, verse 15. But after a while, in the time of the wheat harvest, it came about that Samson visited his wife with a young goat and said, I will go into my wife in her room, but her father did not let him enter. What is he saying? She's a hoe. And the price of a hoe in Timnah is a goat. It's my turn. Here's my goat. Goes up to her father and says that. Okay. I told you the man was brilliant. You think they didn't know this story in Timnah? Oh, that story, it was legendary in Timnah about Judah and what happened with him. That was hundreds of years earlier, but it was legend. And look how this is worded with this, going back to Genesis. Okay, Samson visited his wife with a young goat and said, I will go into my wife in her room. Well, when Judah and Tamar are talking, Judah saw her, verse 15. He thought she was a harlot, for she had covered her face. Verse 16, so he turned aside to her and said, by the road and said, here now, let me come into you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, what will you give me that you may come into me? And he said, I'll send you a kid from the flock. It's worded the same way even. Samson used the same wording that Judah did. Well, that was clever. That was clever. Keep in mind also, he's talking about, if you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you never would have found out my riddle. You know, this view of Samson's correct. I know it is. I don't know why others haven't seen it. But Samson really treated his enemies with complete disdain and contempt. While not being as blazingly crude as Samson, Yeshua treated his enemies the same way, by the way. Look at verse 2 of Judges 15. Her father said, I really thought that you hated her intensely, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please let her be yours instead. So her father gives her to a companion of Samson. Probably one of the friends, it's a Philistine friend. The man was in Timnah, so. And judging by his reaction here, the father says, hey, how about her sister? She's prettier. Look at her. And he said, no, she's not worth a goat. I'd rather keep my goat. Samson then said to them, this time I shall be blameless in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm. Verse 3. And he didn't want to destroy them without reason or opportunity. If you'll remember, he was looking for an opportunity against the Philistines. He wants reason and opportunity, and that's what he got. And he used a goat in Timnah to help fulfill that. Remember what he did after that? He left the woman's father's house. You remember what he did? He went and captured a bunch of foxes, several hundred of them, tied their tails together, set their tails on fire, and had them go through and burn up all the crops there in the town. And the fun starts. See, now he has just cause. They took his wife. They committed adultery. They cheated and lied and stole from him when they fudged on that bet. Well, he showed them. Any thoughts on that? Any questions?